Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a text that, well, let's be honest, usually makes you want to just start doom scrolling.
Yeah, I think we all know that feeling.
Right, because when most people hear the word revelation or, someone brings up that ancient biblical text, a very specific image jumps to mind.
Oh, absolutely. You picture endless disasters,
Exactly. Terrifying judgments, beasts rising from the sea. I mean, it's culturally synonymous with the ultimate apocalyptic horror story.
fire, brimstone, and utter destruction. That is definitely the pervasive popular reading of it.
But for this deep dive, we are flipping that script entirely.
We really are.
The source material we're working from today, which is this in-depth document titled Revelation Chapter 7 Commentary by an author named Bright Morningstar, it approaches this 2,000-year-old text from a completely different angle.
It's a fascinating perspective.
It is. The mission today is to decode this chapter not as a horror story, but as a breathtaking cinematic pause button.
A pause button, I like that.
Right. It frames the narrative as this top-secret rescue mission executed by the highest commander of the universe, and it offers an ultimate survival guide and really a profound healing letter for anyone going through intense struggles. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to start, if we look at the sequence of events, Chapter 7 represents a massive shift in momentum.
How so?
Because in the chapters immediately preceding this, the imagery is just relentless.
Oh, yeah, the four horsemen and all that.
Exactly. You have these terrifying seals being broken, global earthquakes, the sky seemingly falling apart. The momentum of destruction is really building.
It feels like it's speeding up toward the end of the world.
Right. And then suddenly everything just freezes.
Yeah, the text paints this incredibly vivid picture of four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, literally slamming the brakes on the winds of destruction.
It's a very dramatic image.
It reminds me of like a movie director pausing an explosion a millisecond before it detonates, just so the camera can zoom in on this microscopic, intimate rescue operation.
That's a great way to visualize it.
But looking at the symbols here, because Revelation is full of symbols, why wind? And why the specific instruction to not harm the earth, the sea, and the trees?
So to crack that, we have to look at the ancient symbolic code book that the original author was pulling from.
Okay.
And wind is a direct callback to the book of Daniel, chapter 7.
Right, Daniel.
In that context, wind represents war, chaos, and destructive global upheaval. It's basically the force that tears societies apart.
So holding back the winds means holding back total societal and physical collapse,
Exactly. And the targets of that wind are equally coded in the text.
like the earth and sea.
Yes. The earth represents areas of relative safety, order, and established faith. The sea is the ancient symbol for danger, the abyss, the realm of chaotic forces.
Wow. Okay. And what about the trees?
The trees, specifically the fig tree in ancient Near Eastern literature, well, that's a very well-known stand-in for the nation of Israel.
Oh, I see.
So by having these angels hold back the wind from all these specific domains, the text establishes that no matter how chaotic the world looks, the highest power is still in absolute control of the timeline.
Meaning the destruction doesn't happen until he says so?
Precisely.
And he pauses it for a very specific reason, right? The text introduces another angel coming from the east, carrying the seal of the living God.
Yes, the seal is a crucial detail.
The commentary we're using compares this seal to an ancient king's wax signet ring. Like, you drop the hot wax, press the ring into it, and it essentially grants full diplomatic immunity.
It marks ownership. It means this belongs to the king.
Right. But there's a connection to a specific historical figure here in the source that gives this so much more weight, doesn't it?
It really does. It connects to the historical figure of Zerubbabel.
Zerubbabel.
Yeah. So hundreds of years before Revelation was written, the Israelites had been conquered, their magnificent temple was destroyed, and the people were dragged off into slavery in Babylon.
Utter devastation.
Right. But decades later, Zerubbabel was the leader who led a ragtag group of refugees back to a completely ruined Jerusalem.
He wasn't returning to a functioning city, though.
No, not at all. He was returning to ash.
And he was facing massive political opposition from surrounding regions, right? People who really didn't want the city rebuilt.
He was under immense pressure from all sides. But against all odds, he rebuilt the Second Temple out of the rubble.
That's incredible.
And in the historical text surrounding that event, God explicitly calls Zerubbabel his signet ring.
Oh, wow. So there's the connection to the seal.
Exactly. Calling him a signet ring meant he carried the unchallengeable authority of the highest king to bypass local bureaucracy and reconstruct a civilization.
Which means this angel carrying the seal in Revelation, which the source notes prefigures Jesus Christ returning, isn't just, grabbing people before the clock runs out.
No, it's not just a last-minute evacuation.
Right, it's not an escape pod. Just as Zerubbabel rebuilt the temple from ashes, this seal represents a massive reconstruction project.
Yes, it's about rebuilding faith and order out of absolute ruin.
And that underlying purpose completely changes how we view the protection itself.
It shifts the whole paradigm.
Which brings us to the deeply puzzling question of who exactly is getting this seal.
This is where things get really fascinating.
Here's where it gets really interesting, yeah. The text explicitly says 144,000 Israelites from the 12 tribes get this seal on their foreheads.
12,000 from each tribe.
12,000 from each, yeah. But there's a glaring historical math problem here. 10 of those 12 tribes vanished thousands of years ago.
Right, they were conquered, assimilated, and are literally known as the Lost 10 Tribes.
So how can you seal people who don't exist anymore?
Well, this is where reading it as a standard census of living people completely falls apart.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work.
The text suggests, according to the commentary, that we aren't looking at a census of the living at all. It is a resurrected ancient army.
Wait, hold on. A literal army of skeletons rising from the dirt. I mean, that sounds like a horror movie trope. How does the commentary justify reading this as a literal mass resurrection rather than just, poetic license?
It connects the imagery directly to the prophet Ezekiel's famous vision.
The Valley of Dry Bones.
Exactly. A valley filled with dry bones, where breath enters the bones, flesh grows, and they stand up as a vast living army.
Right.
But the commentary maps that ancient vision onto a specific, real-world geographical location, which is the Megiddo Plain.
The ultimate bottleneck of the ancient world.
Yes. Megiddo was the geographical highway where empires collided.
Yeah.
Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, basically anyone who wanted to conquer the known world marched through Megiddo and left their dead there.
It was a massive meat grinder.
It was the site of the most catastrophic military defeats in Israel's history. Their first king, Saul, saw his army destroyed there.
Wow.
The massive Assyrian war machine slaughtered them there. King Josiah was killed in battle there.
So the ground is a literal mass grave of defeated soldiers. And there's a fascinating detail in the text that backs up this specific location. Chapter 7 lists the 12 tribes getting the seal, but the tribe of Dan is completely missing from the list.
Yes, they swapped Dan out for another name.
Why is that? Is it malicious?
Not at all. It's purely geographical. Because Dan lived in the extreme, far north of the territory.
Okay.
When the Assyrian Empire invaded from the north, Dan was the very first to be hit. They were completely wiped out or taken captive immediately.
I see. Because they lived up north, they were wiped out before they could even retreat to fight and die at that final stand at Megiddo.
Exactly. There are literally no bones of the tribe of Dan buried in that valley.
That is mind-blowing. So when this mass resurrection happens on that specific battlefield, Dan simply isn't in the ground to be raised.
Right, they just aren't there physically.
And the mechanism for bringing them up is right there in the preceding chapter. I mean, chapter 6 ends with a world-shattering earthquake.
That's the trigger.
That earthquake unearths the ancient battlefield. So it's not a zombie movie. It's more like a dormant desert seedbed springing to life overnight after a massive flash flood.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
An entire army of 144,000 ancient soldiers, like 144,000 Lazaruses bursting out of the ground at once.
It's a supernatural adventures assemble moment, really.
Yeah.
But a vanguard of resurrected soldiers isn't the end goal here. It's the catalyst.
The catalyst for what?
Well, the text suggests that witnessing this impossible resurrection is exactly what triggers a massive global awakening.
Because right after this, the perspective of the text suddenly zooms out from this precise number of Jewish soldiers to a crowd that no one could count.
Yes, a massive camera pan to a crowd encompassing every single nation, tribe, people, and language.
Which completely shatters any idea of a narrow single nation exclusivity.
Absolutely.
And they are all standing there wearing white robes and holding palm branches.
Now, those palm branches carry immense cultural weight in the first century. They aren't just pretty foliage.
What did they mean back then?
In ancient Rome, palm branches were the ultimate championship trophies. When a victorious general returned from a massive conquest, the crowds lined the streets waving them.
Like a ticker tape parade.
Exactly. In a Jewish tradition, they were used during the Feast of Tabernacles to celebrate surviving the deadly wilderness.
Right.
And of course, They echo the day Jesus rode into Jerusalem.
So holding those branches is a definitive statement that the war is over.
Yes, they survived the wilderness.
But how they survived brings us to probably the most jarring, counterintuitive detail in the entire text.
The paradox of the blood.
Yeah. One of the heavenly elders explains that this massive crowd has washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb.
Right.
But I mean, if you throw a white shirt into a washing machine with blood, it doesn't come out blindingly white.
Not at all.
It comes out dark red and completely ruined. How is blood acting as a purifying bleach here?
It's the ultimate paradox of the text. This crowd has survived the Great Tribulation, which represents, hell-level earthly suffering, persecution, and darkness.
Yeah.
But their ability to stand there in pure white robes didn't come from their own moral perfection or their own military might.
This is where the symbol of the lamb becomes so crucial, isn't it?
Yes.
Because if you're inventing a story in the ancient world about a conquering hero defeating an evil empire, you'd picture a roaring lion, or an eagle, or a dragon.
You picture something that rips its enemies to shreds, brute force.
Right. But Revelation centers the entire victory of the cosmos on a lamb.
And a lamb that had been slain, specifically. The commentary points out that if you conquer an empire with a lion, you just establish a new empire of fear and violence. The cycle just continues.
That makes total sense.
Jesus represents victory through sacrificial love, absorbing the violence to stop it. The blood of the Lamb represents ultimate forgiveness.
So it's acting as a spiritual cleanser.
Exactly. It washes away all human stains, moral failures, and all the trauma accumulated during that Great Tribulation.
So they're wearing white because they allowed themselves to be completely forgiven and loved by something willing to die for them?
Yes.
It completely upends the power dynamic of how we think winning works.
It really does. And witnessing millions of frail, flawed humans washed clean by this sacrifice, well, that triggers a massive reaction from the highest beings in the universe.
The cosmic standing ovation.
Right. The text describes the 24 elders, representing the 12 ancient tribes of Israel, plus the 12 apostles.
Alongside the 4 living creatures.
Yes.
And those 4 creatures, which have the faces of a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle, they represent the absolute apex of the natural world, right?
Yes. Wild beasts, livestock, humanity, and birds.
So you have the representatives of all human history, the entirety of the natural world, and millions of angels. And their reaction is to just fall face down in the dirt.
It's an ultimate universe-wide standing ovation, except everyone is face-planted on the floor in stunning awe.
Wow.
And they offer what the source calls a sevenfold praise. Praise, glory, wisdom, thanks, honor, power, and strength.
Which directly counters the destructive winds from the beginning of the chapter, doesn't it?
That is the vital connection right there.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the chaotic winds of Daniel 7, they tear societies apart through foolishness, violence, and disorder.
Right.
But the angels respond with this sevenfold litany 7, being the ancient number for absolute completeness or perfection. They are countering that chaos with complete wisdom, honor, and true power.
And these are angels who have never experienced suffering.
Exactly. They've never needed saving. But watching the Creator pull humanity out of the mud and reorder the universe through mercy, it staggers them so deeply they're driven to the floor.
They are watching a master artist finish their greatest masterpiece.
That's exactly what it is.
And that masterpiece culminates in 3 ultimate VIP promises given to these survivors. But to really grasp their power, we have to view them through the lens of a first-century person living in the Middle East.
Context is everything here. The first promise is the tent.
The tent.
Yeah. The text says, "He who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence." The word used actually translates to tabernacle.
Like the tabernacle in the desert.
Yes. To a people whose ancestors wandered the scorching desert for 40 years, relying on a miraculous cloud to shield them from the sun and a pillar of fire to keep them warm at night, this means ultimate, impenetrable protection.
It's shielding them day and night.
Right. Then the second promise addresses physical vulnerability directly.
It says, "They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat."
For early believers, many of whom were impoverished, exiled to work in Roman mines, or literally starving as they hid from persecution, the promise of an end to physical pain was huge.
It was the end of endless survival mode.
Exactly. And the third promise is a profound role reversal.
This one is so beautiful.
The lamb becomes the shepherd, leading them to springs of living water.
A sheep doesn't hurt other sheep.
No, normally they don't. But because this leader was willing to become the sacrificial lamb, to experience the deepest human vulnerability and death. He is uniquely qualified to shepherd them.
He isn't leading from some detached ivory tower.
No, he has
No.
walked through the exact same valley of the shadow of death that they have.
Which sets up the final, most tender, cinematic image in the chapter. The Supreme Commander of the Cosmos, this being that just caused the entire universe to faceplant in awe, physically bends down to wipe every single tear from their faces.
It's such an intimate moment.
It really is. So if we step back from all the ancient symbols for a second, what does this actually mean for you, the listener, facing your own great tribulation today?
It means that the Creator isn't offering generic thoughts and prayers from afar.
Right.
He isn't waving a magic wand from a distance to simply teleport people out of pain. Wiping away a tear requires ultimate proximity.
You have to be right there.
It is an intimate acknowledgement of their pain. He is validating the trauma, the injustices, and the physical suffering they endured, and then intimately erasing it. It's a profound individual healing session.
We started today with a text almost universally associated with terrifying doom, endless disasters, and monsters. But looking closely, we found the pause button.
We really did.
We explored an intimate rescue mission, starting with a dormant battlefield of ancient bones springing to life, a literal rebirth from the ashes of history.
And that impossible restoration triggered a global awakening, revealing an infinite crowd from every nation standing victorious, not through violence, but through the sacrificial love that absorbs and ends the cycle of destruction.
And it culminates in an ultimate cosmic healing session, where the Lamb becomes the shepherd, guiding the survivors to living water.
It tells us that all earthly tribulations, no matter how overwhelming they feel, have an expiration date.
Yeah, and true victory belongs to sacrificial love, not brute force. So I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, building on that really vivid image of the tears being wiped away. Think about the mechanics of that moment. For the Creator to physically wipe away those tears, it means those people arrived in that ultimate sanctuary still crying.
That's profound.
The memories of their pain had to be brought into that perfect place to be healed. It makes you wonder, in our own lives, do we spend too much energy trying to outrun, bury, or hide our own deeply painful tribulations?
We constantly try to put on a brave face.
We do, when perhaps true, lasting healing only happens when we carry those very scars into the light, allowing them to finally be seen so they can be wiped clean. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.